Okay, here I'd like to explain our material, which is speech acts and conversational maxims in discourse analysis. So, firstly, we have to know what is speech acts and conversational maxims. So, speech acts theory and conversational maxims are foundational concepts in discourse analysis because they shift attention from language as a system of forms to language as a social action. Speech acts, speech acts are treated not merely as isolated utterance but as functional units embedded in discourse structures, while conversational maxims are presented as principles that guide interpretation and interactions. Michael McCarthy situates speech acts within broader discourse structure. Barbara Johnston discussed both speech acts and conversational implicature in relation to intention and interpretations, and James Polgy frames language as simultaneously saying, doing, and being. Together, these perspectives reveal how speech acts and Christian maxims operate not only at the level of individual sentences but across larger stretches of discourse. So, next, speech acts as social actions. So, speech acts theory, originally developed by Austin and Searle, argues that utterance perform actions rather than simply convey informations. In discourse analysis, this insight is expanded beyond isolated examples to examine how speech acts functions within extended interactions. Johnston explains that for an utterance to count as a request, certain felicity conditions must be satisfied. These include the speaker genuinely wants the actions performed, the hearer is able to perform the actions, and the speaker intends the utterance to be interpreted as a request. These conditions demonstrate that speech acts are context-dependent. An utterance like "get lost" may be interpreted as a joke, an insult, or a literal directive depending on contextual cues and shared assumptions. Okay, next, indirect speech acts and implicature. Many speech acts are indirect. Instead of saying "close the window," a speaker may ask, "Could you close the window?" or state, "It's cool in here." Understanding such as utterance requires inferential process. Johnston discussed how indirect speech acts are interpreted through shared conventions. Speakers can allude to contextual conditions rather than explicitly stating their intentions. For example, "Could you get some coffee?" alludes to the hearer's ability. "I wish somebody would get a coffee," alludes to the speaker's desire. So these indirect forms allow politeness and face saving. They demonstrate that meaning often exceeds literal content. Next is speech acts within discourse structure. So speech acts theory alone doesn't fully explain how meaning unfolds across longer stretches of talk. McCarthy emphasized that discourse analysis examines patterns such as exchanges, adjacency, pairs, and conversational norms. This suggests that speech acts must be analyzed as a part of sequence rather than isolated utterance. A request, for example, may lead to acceptance, refusal, negotiations, clarifications. Each response reshapes the discourse, meaning is co-constructed rather than simply transmitted. Johnston also connects speech acts to broader persuasive strategies. In rhetorical discourse, repetition, parallelism, and presentational strategy amplify illocutionary force. A speech act such as urging or demanding becomes more powerful when embedded in rhythmic pattern language. Thus, discourse level organizations intensifies and shapes speech acts effects. Next is critics and broader perspective. While reading, while speech acts theory and recent maxims are influential, Johnston notes critics of this model. One criticism is that they rely on Western assumptions about intention and rational cooperation. Not all cultures conceptualize meaning, primarily in terms of individual speaker intentions. This framework helps move beyond purely cognitive interpretations. Its view that language enacts identities and social realities suggests that speech acts are part of larger discourse. With a capital D, these discourse include values, beliefs, and institutional norms. A courtroom objections, a classroom directive, and a casual suggestion may share grammatical features but differ profoundly in social meaning. Therefore, speech acts and maxims must be understood within social, cultural, and institutional contexts. They are not universal mechanical rules but socially embedded practices. Next is the relationship between speech acts and maxim. So, speech acts and conversational maxims are deeply interconnected. Speech acts describe what actions are performed through language. Conversational maxims describe how those actions are interpreted within cooperative interactions. Indirect speech acts often depend on implicature. A speaker flouts a maxim and the hearer infers the intended illocutionary force. For example, uh, I don't have anything to write with, and then the other person say, I have a pen. Under the cooperative principle, A interprets B's statement as an offer. The literal statement becomes a speech act of offering through implicature. Thus, maxims provide the interferential bridge between literal meaning and performed actions. So the conclusion of this material is across the discourse analysis books, speech acts and conversational maxims emerge as central mechanism for understanding language in use. McCarthy situates speech acts within structure patterns of discourse. Johnston explains felicity conditions, indirectness, and quasi cooperative principle. G frames language as actions and identity, expanding speech acts beyond sentence-level pragmatic. I think that's all that I can explain about our material, and thank you.